Peace and blessings, beloved. Come here to be educated, empowered, enlightened, inspired, motivated, and challenged to be critical and independent thinkers. Let's get to it. Peace and blessings, beloved. I pray all is well with you and yours. And welcome to the postscript of the Wake Up video series, Kareem Hunt, a lesson in decision-making edition. And very briefly, I want to go over this recent YouTube clip I came across in which the Kareem Hunt situation was updated by ESPN reporter Sage Steele. Now I'm going to play the clip shortly, and what I want you to do is pay very close attention to the comparison that Sage Steele makes with Kareem Hunt, and also the language used by Adam Schefter, particularly when he references Kareem Hunt and his relationship to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then thereafter we'll discuss and further reinforce and reiterate some of the same themes and sentiments that were shared in the original coverage. So having said that, let's get to it.
New details have emerged about the way both the NFL and the Cleveland Police Department handled the February assault of 19-year-old Abby Ottinger involving now former Kansas City Chiefs running back Kareem Hunt. Let's start with the NFL. Outside the Lines interviewed witnesses and reviewed police documents, as well as 4+ hours of body camera video from police officers. A league source says the NFL did review documents, and they did interview Hunt's friends in February, but they did not interview Kareem Hunt himself. They also requested surveillance video from hotel officials who said they would only give it to law enforcement. Therefore, the league never saw the surveillance video. As for the Cleveland Police Department, the OTL investigation found that police did not ask to see surveillance video the morning of the incident and waited hours to question Hunt. When they did talk, police asked Hunt if he wanted them to turn off their body cameras, which they did. Wednesday, police in Cleveland say they have launched an internal investigation into the department's response. Also, here's an excerpt from the OTL piece on this investigation. What's clear from available evidence is that a hotel security staffer and Cleveland police officers appeared skeptical of Ottinger's account, and that police did not ask to see surveillance video that morning, even though witnesses on both sides of the altercation implored officers to do so. At one point, an officer is heard expressing his belief that a detective would have to get a subpoena to review surveillance tape, end quote. Also, a source with knowledge of the NFL disciplinary process said Hunt, the incident is, quote, a bigger mess up than Ray Rice, end quote. Adam Schefter back with us. And Adam, as those investigations continue, what is the future for Kareem Hunt?
Well, Sage, we saw this week that he went unclaimed on waivers. And obviously, once he goes unclaimed, that means he's not on the commissioner's exempt list anymore because he's not a team's property anymore. So at this point in time, it's fair to assume he's not going to play this season. He's going to face a lengthy suspension at some point next season if he plays at all. And the soonest we may see Kareem Hunt is in 2020. Plus, he may have legal obstacles in front of him. I think that the Cleveland Police Department is taking another look at this case at this point in time. We'll see what the Cleveland Police Department decides to do. If anything, the league is conducting its own investigation to take a further look into all the circumstances that involved Kareem Hunt last offseason, from the fight in January in Kansas City to the incident in February in Cleveland to another incident in June in Cleveland. 3 separate incidents that the league is considering. And I think at this point in time, it's fair to say that his future in the NFL is murky at best, Sage.
All right, beloved. And so I hope that you really pay close attention to the verbiage used, both by Sage Steele and Adam Schefter. So firstly, we had Sage Steele quoting from the OTL report on the Kareem Hunt investigation, in which a comparison was made between Kareem Hunt and Ray Rice. And so what I'll do is provide a brief overview of the Ray Rice situation, because it's very clear to me that there's a narrative that is being pushed, and what it's doing is a huge disservice to Kareem Hunt. Now, of course, I'm all about accountability and responsibility. But what's happening here is borderline ridiculous. But I understand it because I understand the way this society works. And so, real briefly, if you're not familiar with the Ray Rice situation, the Ray Rice story, he's an NFL player, former NFL player, played for the Baltimore Ravens. He was caught on surveillance in a hotel, assaulting his then fiance, who shortly after became his wife. And it was alleged that the NFL knew about this video footage, this surveillance footage, and to that point they hadn't made any action against Ray Rice until it was revealed and exposed that they had prior knowledge. So basically their back was against the wall, their hand was forced, and they had to remove Ray Rice from the NFL. He went on an apology tour. I heard that he was doing public speaking engagements where he was talking about domestic violence. And you know what? It's a great thing to be able to use that negative, that dark time in your life to inspire and encourage and impart wisdom onto other people. That's really the goal of our tragedies and our trials. Outside of growing and maturing us personally, it's supposed to be so that other people won't go through the same things. That's part of the sacrifice of the human condition. And so I applaud Ray Rice and his wife for doing that. However, if you take that story and you put it up against the story of Kareem Hunt, and even if you watch the video of Ray Rice and you put that up against the video of Kareem Hunt, there's nothing to compare outside of it being a black man and a female. The dynamic is not the same. Ray Rice was dealing with his fiance. They supposedly had, up to that point, had a contentious, volatile relationship. Was it violent? I don't know. Volatile, that's the reports. And so they had familiarity. And then you have Kareem Hunt and this stranger who we just met that night, who allegedly spewed a racial epithet, the N-word, to him. And if you watch the video, not only did that, got in his face on multiple occasions, swung at him more than once. And so this was not a victim. This is not someone who was knocked unconscious by a punch like Ray Rice's fiance was. This was somebody who was pushed to the ground secondhand and then kicked in the bottom half of her body. And mind you, this is also a 19-year-old female who was reportedly inebriated after a night of bar hopping and going to a strange man's apartment or residence in the wee hours of the morning. So again, you see there's nothing to compare here outside of a narrative that they're trying to create. They mean the media are trying to create to castigate this man. And I don't want to use the word crucify, but I'm failing to think of another word to represent what they're doing to Kareem Hunt. Now again, I'm not excusing Kareem Hunt's behavior. Kareem Hunt definitely has to account for his actions, and he made several missteps, as I alluded to in the original video. However, this woman is not a victim any more than Kareem Hunt's a victim. And if you had to assign victimhood to either one of these parties, I would assign it much more rapidly to Kareem Hunt than this female. And that's taking into account the video footage, the interview footage thereafter, what the media and social media has done to Kareem Hunt in the aftermath, what reporters have said about him, so on and so forth. So he's the true victim. As you can see, his career is in jeopardy. Adam Schefter mentioned him not being eligible to play until 2020, realistically speaking. And so all of these things have to be in our minds as young men and young women, because we can't be blind to what society is trying to do to the relationship of a man and a woman. It's very clear. And this is not anything new. They've been doing this for a long time. They mean the powers that be, who have power and influence over the media, over society at large. And I'll get into that in other coverage. But just know this. There is an agenda at play. There's a very concerted, very purposeful effort to destroy the family. And it's not just the black family, so-called black family, so-called brown family. The family, period. The man is being tore down. He's being deconstructed. And the woman is being propped up and heralded in this society. And it's for a reason. Much like Satan did in the Garden of Eden, where he deceived Eve because he knew that he could get her easier than he could get Adam. The powers that be know now that in order for them to have their plan unfurl successfully, the man has to be weakened. Think about it. It's in a man's nature to be a protector, to be the strength, to be the logic, to be the reason, to be the strategizer, to be the builder. And so if you take away all of those things and you promote and put forth the fairer sex, the quote-unquote weaker sex, keep it in proper context, don't be offended, knowing that they are ruled by their emotions first and foremost, and that's just a biological fact. There's no need to debate that. And you think about how easy it is to create and promote chaos and disorder and turmoil. And you just think about the society that we have now, how everything goes. There are no rules. There is no more structure. And that's what happens when the man is not in the lead, when he's been emasculated, when he's been raised up to be weak, to be mealy-mouthed, to be apologetic. And so again, what I want us to do from this day forward is just to be more aware, just to be more aware of our environment, be more aware of our decisions, be more aware of how this world operates so that we can properly navigate it. Because there's no way that we can ever get to any point of restoration if we don't even know that there's anything broken that needs to be restored. And so I implore us as men who are the lead, who are supposed to be the head of household and the head of civilization, the head of community. That's God's divine order. And that's what's missing. Order and structure. And so if we can get back to order and structure, then we can start to build once again. Because right now we're in an age of destruction, an age of disorder. And again, if you keep rocking with me, I'll make it make sense to you. Some of you might be saying, what are you talking about? That's fine. Just keep on rocking with me and I'll make you a believer. Oh man. But seriously, I love us too much, and I don't mean just us as in so-called black people. I mean us, period. God's creation. I love us too much to allow us to keep on drowning. So I'm trying to throw us some life jackets, some little floaties, the little life preserver, whatever. Try and get us out. And Lord knows it's going to be a struggle. But anything worth having is worth fighting for. And so that's why I'm here. And so moving forward, then you heard Adam Schefter in his comparison, or in his reference to Kareem and the Kansas City Chiefs, use the word property. as in Kareem Hunt was no longer property of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, isn't that interesting? Property. Now, I remember maybe 2 years, 3 years ago, where Kanye West did an interview on The Breakfast Club, and he referenced his new song at the time off of the Yeezus album. That's a blasphemous name, by the way. I have a huge problem with him for that, but I digress. And so on this interview, or during this interview, he referred to us as the new slaves, and he even referred to athletes as slaves. And the minstrel Charlemagne the God, and I hate using that word, that term, the God, but I want to make sure we know who I'm talking about. He said there's no way that an athlete can be a slave because they make an exorbitant amount of money. And see, right there, I understood that Charlemagne is not that foolish. He understood exactly what Kanye West was saying, but because they had to spew a certain narrative, then he had to break that down, because if you cause people to think freely and to think contrary to the media narrative or to the societal narrative, then you have to be reprogrammed. And see, that takes too long. So what Charlemagne did was damage control. And then if you see the interview for yourself, you'll notice that Kanye, he backs down from that stance. Kinds of apologizes, say, I didn't really mean that. And so why am I bringing that up? Because slavery doesn't have anything to do with a physical freedom. Because there were people who could have been free from slavery, but they were enslaved in their mind. Now, getting back to Kanye, he made a reference to that more recently during a TMZ interview. First, I think it was a tweet that he referenced about slavery being 400 years ago and about how we're still slaves. And again, anybody who is awake and not brainwashed can clearly see that what he was saying was that it is a mental, spiritual enslavement in which we may have the freedom to roam around and make a living and do what we want, but we've been brainwashed into believing a certain thing about ourselves that isn't true. We've been brainwashed to want to chase money and chase women and to do whatever it takes to get ahead and to be a have and not a have not, as opposed to being raised up to be godly men and women, to build civilization together. And again, it's very purposeful. This world is cold, man. This world doesn't love us. This world never has loved us. It never will love us. It allows us to please our flesh because it knows that doing so will cause us to destroy one another and destroy ourselves. Again, as you catch that, we are given all of these temptations because if we please our flesh, we will eventually and inevitably destroy ourselves and each other. And you can see it happening. The Bible speaks to it very clearly. Among other things, the love of money is the root of all evil. People chasing money, people chasing wealth and fame and possessions have caused themselves many pains. In the end times, people will be lovers of self. They will revel in debauchery. They will engage in sexual deviancy, sexual perversion. They will dishonor their parents. They will consider themselves gods because they have determined what is good and evil. Now, what does that mean? That means instead of taking God's divine order in that he created man and then create a woman from man, they say, nah, you can be a man on Monday and be a woman on Tuesday, or be a transgender on Wednesday, or be gender fluid, where you can be a man, woman, and transgender all in the same day, because they have created and decided what is good and what is evil. And whatever is not vogue is evil. And God's word is never vogue. God's word is constant. It is immutable, meaning that it does not change. There's no sliding scale. And that's what people don't like about God's word. There's no room. There's no wiggle room. There's no allowance for any foolishness, for any evolution. And that means that people have to adhere to a code of conduct. People have to adhere to a certain lifestyle. People have to sacrifice. And people aren't willing to do that because they want to please their flesh. 3 things that have caused the downfall of this world: lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, pride of life. Now you think about that. And again, I don't want to go too deep here. The point is this: we have to awaken from our slumber. We have to realize the agenda that the powers that be are engaging right before our very eyes. It's being played out like theater. Reminds me of a Shakespeare quote: all the world's a stage, we're just actors playing a part. Now you can take that in one of many ways. I just want you to simmer on that as we segue into this final clip. And in this clip, what you'll notice, and what I want us to pick up on and focus in on, is the fact that, again, women in this society are heralded, they're propped up, they're set up to be worshipped. And you can think about anything from how we're supposed to treat them and how they are a prize, allegedly, and how we're supposed to get on one knee to propose to them and spend ridiculous amounts of money on a wedding. And then once they decide they don't want to be married anymore, they are entitled to alimony. And if they become pregnant and give birth to a child by us, they are entitled to an 18-year check, in which the amount is typically much more than is needed for caring for a child. But they have the full backing of the court system and the government at large. And so understanding that, it's no wonder that a woman feels like she doesn't need to have any good reason for feeling the way she feels, for doing what she does, for saying what she says. And so what you'll see in this clip is that Shannon Sharpe pushes back on this female on his show Undisputed with Skip Bayless, in which she takes a hardline stance against Kareem Hunt. And then when she's challenged by Shannon Sharpe, she doesn't really have a substantive reason for her position. You'll see she's uncertain of herself. And it's very indicative of the fact that that's why society does not want the man in power, because the man holds everything into account. The man looks at things logically and reasonably. He wants to get to a conclusion. He wants to get to a resolution, rather than just have fluff floating around and acting on emotions. So having said that, let's get into the clip and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Honestly, it was just a long night, and to be exact, it don't really matter what happened. I was in the wrong. I could have, took responsibility and, made the right decision to, find a way to de-escalate the whole situation. It was definitely some things that were said and did that I did not like, and that's not an excuse. It's not. I'm that person in that video did not deserve that. I didn't mean to hurt anybody or anything like that. And it's really tough.
All right, Shannon, what is your reaction?
Skip, I watched this young man speak yesterday, and I don't normally watch other shows, and I definitely don't watch anything with the sound because I don't want anybody to contaminate my thoughts or speak behind someone.
All right, beloved, real quick, before we get to the actual footage where Shannon goes toe-to-toe with the female, I wanted to cover this, first of all, the interview that Kareem Hunt did with Lisa Salters, and then Shannon Sharpe's subsequent introduction to his comments. And so with the interview that Kareem Hunt conducted, first and foremost, you saw a conciliatory individual. You saw an individual who had been defeated, disappointed, embarrassed with himself and his actions. And to a certain extent, I do see a level of sincerity. However, what I want to cover here is the importance of, once again, men taking responsibility for their actions and understanding where they went wrong. Now, if you notice, he did mention that he could have made decisions to de-escalate. He could have handled things differently. He acknowledged that he came out of himself and that he didn't even recognize who he saw in the footage. So that means what? That means that he allowed his emotions to overtake him to the point where he was no longer in control. Alcohol, which is a whole separate issue. And so you put all these things together, emotionality and inebriation, and this is what you get. You get regrettable situations. Now, sometimes those situations can be swept under the rug. They can be forgotten or not even remembered at all due to the alcohol or drugs involved. But whenever there's video and whenever there's a news story, that's a toxic mix. And what it always results in is somebody being castigated, somebody being used as a representative of how the society operates. And once again, this is a matriarchy that we're under. It's being done for a very specific reason. But moving forward, and what I don't want anybody to misunderstand is the fact that I don't have an issue with the female sex. This issue is with the brainwashing of the female sex, the improper treatment of the female sex, which again is very purposeful in destroying this civilization. And so there are women who are aware and who are complicit, and I do blame them. But by and large, females are being raised to live inside of a fantasy. And what I mean by that is this. If you look at how a female is groomed, meaning what she watches, the kinds of books she reads, the terms that are ascribed to her, princess. She watches fairy tales on Disney and all of these shows about the supernatural, and then she grows up and she wants to make up her face until she looks like an entirely different person, and she paints her nails a certain color, and she starts to dislike her hair or just desires to look like a certain archetype, and so she gets longer hair and different color hair, and then she wants to make herself look more appealing and more appetizing to the male sex, and so she pushes up her breasts and then she thins her waist and then she increases the size of her butt. But none of this is done naturally. This is all done by sleight of hand, by illusion. So again, all of this is fantasy. It's not reality. And so the woman is done a disservice by being catered to in this dysfunction. So getting back to my original point, It's incumbent upon the man to take the leadership role because the women need it. They long for it, even if they don't realize it. And the woman's role is beautiful. The woman's role is necessary. It is imperative. It is essential. We need the woman to know that there is great value in the role that God gave her. And so see, again, these are things that are being propped up in this society to give a woman false power or false sense of power to promote chaos. But getting back to this, I don't want you to think that I'm anti-female, anti-woman. That's foolish. If you know me, you know I pursue godliness. I pursue holiness. I live for Him. And for Him I die daily. And so the point here is again to promote godliness, not to promote anti-anything except for anti-evil. And that's all I'll ever be against. And then you have Shannon Sharpe bringing up a very, very important point. One that is crucial. One that pretty much ties in to the reason that I even created this platform in the first place. He said he tries not to watch other shows and he doesn't listen to them with sound because he doesn't want them to contaminate his thoughts. And so again, the purpose here is to create independent critical thinkers. So I don't want you to hang on to anybody's words and make them your own. I want you to take sentiments, take things that you hear even from me and use them as a springboard from which you can do your own due diligence, do your own research, do your own study, do your own analysis, do your own assessment. So I don't want you to take what I say as gospel and leave it there. I want you to take what I say, digest it, ingest it, absorb it, do what you need to do with it, apply it to wisdom, and then expound upon it. Because I don't know everything. But that which I do know, I want to share with you freely because I love you. And I want you to live the most fulfilled, successful life that you can possibly live. And that has nothing to do with what you possess. That has nothing to do with your bank account. It has everything to do with whether or not you have a spiritual relationship. Your foundation has to be rock solid spiritually, because we all live forever. We just don't live forever in the flesh. Once we pass away from this earth, our spirit will live in the spirit world forever. Some of us will live with God. Most of us will live apart from God. Or I should say most of y'all, because I know for sure I'm living with God. And so the point is, we have to make sure that we satiate that spiritual relationship while we're here, while we have time, because once we pass away, there is no more time. No matter what Catholics say, there's no time in the afterlife to get right with God. The time to get right with God is now. And so I implore us all to take it as seriously as it needs to be taken, and to stop playing around, and to stop letting people lead you straight to hell. And I mean that very sincerely. And so again, let's get back into the clip and see the confrontation between Shannon Sharpe and this female.
And Kareem, I believe she said something. I believe she did something. But bruh, it's a female, it's a male involved, and you always, 1,000 times out of 1,000, you're going to be wrong.
Now, beloved, think about what Shannon said. 1,000 times out of 1,000 times, because it's a female and you're a male, you're going to be wrong. Now think about what that message is saying about society. Because basically what that means, what he's implying, is that it doesn't matter what the female ever does in a situation. She could get in your face, she could put a finger in your face, she could poke you in your face, she could put her chest against your chest, she could push you, she could punch you, she could slap you, she could kick you. But if you even breathe on her heavily, it's a wrap. You're in handcuffs. You're going to jail. You got to get bailed out. You got to go to court. You got to pay. You got to go to jail. Any variation of those things is going to happen. And so it's imperative that we understand our environment. That's why I harp on these themes the way that I do. You have to be aware of self. You have to be aware of the people that you surround yourself with. And you have to be aware of your environment. And so while I think it's borderline laughable that nobody's bringing up what this female did, and of course Shannon does mention it in part, and he says he believes the girl did something. I mean, you can clearly see from the video that she did something. She did something on several occasions throughout the video. But again, even in him broaching the subject, he has to watch what he says, because believe it or not, he still has to play his part in this agenda. Now, am I saying that Shannon Sharpe is insincere in his sentiments? I'm not saying that. But he understands that he has a script that he has to abide by, because he knows how his bread is buttered and where his bread is buttered. Meaning that he knows who he's beholden to, because they have his money in their hands. But getting back to the point, again, it's incumbent upon us to understand the rules of engagement. And if we're really serious about restoring order, then we have to change these rules if these rules don't lead us to the goal that we're seeking. And propping up a female to do no wrong is not leading us to the goal that we have set for ourselves in restoring civilization. What we're doing is accelerating destruction. Period. Because think about it. What we're telling the woman is that she can do all of those things I mentioned earlier in this clip without any recourse, without any action against her. And so what is she going to do? She's going to continue in her ways. She'll just go to a different market, different person, different area, and continue. And then one day she'll have a child, and she'll rear that child to be as dysfunctional and chaotic as she is. And they'll grow up into young women who are chaotic and dysfunctional and erratic and unstable, and the cycle will continue. And so what? We have to nip this in the bud. We have to cut it off at the head before it becomes a runaway train. Now, it's already there in a manner of speaking, but there is still hope. So let's move forward.
This isn't new. This isn't a new issue for the NFL. And you listen to the video and you watch Kareem, and I do believe he's sorry. And I'm sure he was under the influence of something. Well, he didn't admit that, which doesn't really change the thing. But I just don't know if he deserves another shot, because you make that mistake.
Really? You think?
I don't know if he does.
So here's my thing now.
Wow.
If this is
makes me sick.
I just wanted to make sure we're clear. If this is a lifetime ban for a professional athlete, I want doctors, I want police officers, I want everybody to get a lifetime ban, because it just can't be for domestic violence if you're a professional athlete. I want everybody that has an occupation to suffer a lifetime ban.
By the way,
we're going.
I'm not even sure this qualifies as domestic violence. It was just assault to me.
So I just want to make sure, if that's the road we're going to travel down. If you put your hands on a woman, no matter your occupation, it's got to be a lifetime ban. No more employment for you. Because what I'm starting to hear is more that, well, he's a professional athlete, he doesn't deserve to do anything anymore. No, doctors, lawyers, firemen, policemen, school teachers, bankers. I want that to be the uniformity across the board.
Well, obviously,
it is a high standard. You have to. You are held to a higher standard.
So doctors are not held to a high standard?
Well, but I'm just saying, in the NFL, you should know better.
Let me ask you a question. If he was not in the NFL, what would be the difference?
I mean,
But
all
NFL
people should be held to that standard.
NFL
but the
players
NFL
are looked at as role models and representatives of
So
a
what is
league
the-
that
what is the-
operates
what is the
on
doctor
its
looked at?
image.
They are also looked at
Okay,
very
so a
highly.
lot of
And
times
that would
you-
be handled in a different way. But
Why?
this is the NFL.
Why?
Because you are held to a higher standard.
But you said, are you saying doctors and lawyers are not held to a standard? And school teachers. Do you see, Jenny?
But a lot of time the public doesn't even know what inspires.
So
it becomes so public.
But see, you got to excuse the NFL because they didn't know the tape existed. So what they didn't know.
Well, they had to know the tape existed.
Okay,
There
then.
was a
So
tape.
if it's the veil of secrecy, if we don't know who you are, if you Joe America and you do this, you can go on about your life. But if you're a professional athlete and we know about it, you should be held to a high standard. That's not the way the justice and the law said it's blind.
All right, beloved, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. But before we do that, I want to go over this brief confrontation that Shannon Sharpe had with the moderator of the show, Jenny, aided by Skip Bayless, who attempted to bail out Jenny on several occasions. She definitely needed it. And this is not a shot at this individual. She's misguided. She's misled, like most females that adhere to this society's ideologies. Now, I'm not talking about all women, because there are women out there who are pursuing godliness and holiness, and they have not allowed themselves to become enraptured by the foolishness that this world is spewing out. But there are a large number of women and men who are being used and who have been programmed and who are now societal tools of the enemy, sent out to propagate and perpetrate his evil. And so it is because of that that I focus on themes like this. So what you have was Jenny asserting or inferring that she doesn't believe Kareem Hunt should have a job in the NFL any longer, which I believe is laughable at best. And then you have Shannon Sharpe pushing back. And then you have Jenny digging her feet in the sand, because even though she knows there is a certain level of validity to Shannon Sharpe's rebuttal and his assertions, she cannot concede, because that's not part of the script. That's not a part of her programming. If you know how this world operates, then you know what the propaganda is, and if you've been listening to me, then you know that the woman is being propped up in the societies. And so if she had any sense, then you know that she would take a step back, look at the situation from a standpoint not of emotion, not of anger, not of hostility, but of reasoning and context. And so again, this is a microcosm look at the macrocosm societal issue that we have before us. And so I just wanted us to see that this is what happens when you push back. The woman knows that you're right when you provide context, logic, and reason. And that's how shaky the whole ideology of this new wave of feminism is. It's shaky at best. And in reality, it's even worse than shaky. But I'll throw them a bone for this video and say it's shaky. But the point is this: because we know this as men, now we have to assume the responsibility of leader once again, so that we can bring the women out of this muck and mire of propaganda and bring them back into the light and restore them to civility, so that we can begin to build this society back up to reach its full potential. And that's really as simple as it gets. And that's the God's honest truth. And remember, I'm not anti-woman. If anything, I'm pro-woman. And you can tell if you really think about what I'm saying in this coverage. Because I know the woman has been programmed. I know she has been desensitized. She has been led astray. She's been bamboozled. And men as well. All men who choose to prop up women and put them on a pedestal and worship them, basically. You've been lied to. So that's why I'm here. And so again, it's up to us, men. And on that note, I'll conclude this video. We'll pick this back up with our next theme, our next topic. As always, I appreciate your support. The love is real, the blessings are realer. And I look forward to growing and sharing with you in the future. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing. That's a wrap. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and comment. Also check us out on IG, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, and Patreon, all under Lusu Media Group. And as always, you can get in-depth content on Patreon once you subscribe. Also check out our Lusu Designs lifestyle apparel, which you can now purchase online. See the description for the links. And last but certainly not least, shout out all my sponsors for their support. Definitely appreciate the love on there, and their info is also below in the description. Alright family, until next time, be blessed and be a blessing.